Arcade Studio Podcast. I'm here with my longtime friend Gulshan Mia. She is an actress in New York at the moment and locked down. Hey G, how you doing?
Hi, I'm good. How are you?
Yeah, not too bad. Thanks, not too bad. The good thing about this coronavirus lockdown is that we've started doing these podcasts over the web, because we always had this thing, like a very rigid mindset of the guest has to be in the room with us because we wanted to have that connection. But the good thing is that now we can do it like this, and I'm actually having quite a bit of fun, like reconnecting with people that I haven't seen for a long, long time. So even though the technology is there, we're not really like using it all the time.
Right. Yeah. Because this capability has always been there, but now that we're forced to do it, we're like, oh, right, we can actually chat over Zoom or Skype.
Exactly. It's madness. It's madness, but it's it's one of those things that, you know, it's nice to set aside some time just to like do this, and it's been good. That's been like one real positive that I've been taking out of this whole lockdown. You've been locked down a little bit less than us here in Italy. But week 3, 4.
Friday. Tomorrow will be 6 weeks.
6 weeks. Oh, okay. So then they're a week less than us. Okay, that's not too bad. No, it's almost finished. That's
yeah. So, well, we'll see.
So you've also got the added fun and games of having a bit of a psychopath as a president at the moment.
Oh, yeah. There's that.
Yeah.
And every day there's something new. And I don't know. I don't know if he's a psychopath or if he's just like a 2-year-old throwing tantrums. Okay, I'm sorry. No offense to your kid.
No, but I mean, she looks a bit like Trump at the moment. She's got crazy hair.
And she screams a lot too.
And screams and just says things that make no sense. So it doesn't really, it's quite fun to watch from far away, but then I can imagine that for you, in your position as also an immigrant in New York at the moment, it can be quite stressful.
Yeah. I'm a brown Muslim immigrant woman, like everything that he despises, I think. And every day, like there's a new headline. Like it's bad enough just trying to deal with lockdown and having been sick and my husband being sick. And then there's an immigration ban. And it's supposed to be temporary, but the Muslim ban was supposed to be temporary, and that was 3 years ago.
Yeah.
There's a lot of fear. There's a lot of disappointment. There's a lot of frustration. It's disheartening.
Yeah, and it's not the time. This is the time for strong leadership and somebody that comes and stands up. And in Italy, we have this prime minister at the moment who was sort of placed there because we have a different sort of political system here. And he's really like stood up and he's like taking it on his shoulders. But because he doesn't seem to be officially democratically elected, because here it works that the parties, they make coalitions to govern because nobody has enough power. And through the coalitions, then they pick somebody that will be the president or the prime minister. And so you don't select the guy. And so a lot of people are like, well, you know, we never chose to have this guy leading us, and now he's making decisions of how long we're going to be locked indoors for. But he's stood up and he seems to be okay. But at the same time, you've got Bolsonaro in Brazil, you've got Trump, and you've got Bojo in the UK. And it's like...
You've got Modi in India.
Yeah, Modi in India as well. Crazy guy in Hungary. There's a lot of dictator-style people that, you know, they're not all dictators, but it's like they got that idea at the end of the day.
Yeah. And then there's the New Zealand Prime Minister who I just in the Arden.
Yeah.
Who I just love. I have like a girl crush on.
Oh, but she's nailing it at the moment.
She is, and they're keeping their numbers down. Like they're almost clear, I think it was that I was reading the other day. But then, like here, it's so obvious that so many of his stunts are because it's an election year and he's just trying to pander to his supporters.
Of course.
And you're like, come on, this is a global pandemic. This is happening. Not just to us, to everyone. Like, learn from what other people are doing.
No,
but then we also have people in the middle of the country who are protesting having to stay at home.
I saw that.
And saying they need haircuts and they need manicures. And you're like, okay, wow. Are we actually... Like, I feel like I'm in a parallel universe sometimes.
I think it's a matter of how many people get touched by it, because I've noticed it with my friends. The people that haven't had loved ones in hospital, they don't really care about it. The people that have, they're a little bit more sensitive to it. And, the people that are losing work, they're very worried. And so, like, obviously, if you haven't got any loved ones dying and you're losing work, the most important thing to you is work. It's not the old people. This is like the perfect storm of a virus, actually, because it's hard to detect. It takes a long time to come out. It's highly contaminant, and it kills old people. So people don't really care about old people, so we cannot care about the virus,
But I mean, here in New York, there have been younger people who have died.
But here too, but it's like a tiny percentage of people that get so sick and that actually have to end up dying. Yeah. Let's forget about the sadness and depression. Yes. What I wanted to get you on for is because, like, you are, I would say, an inspiration for anybody who has a dream and needs to chase it. Because when we met, it was, I think, around 2000. We were both studying at.
It was 2 decades ago. I just want to put that up.
Exactly, decades ago. It's exactly 2 decades ago. It's crazy.
Yep.
Madness. And you were studying drama studies. I was studying photography. And you had already been working before that, right? You didn't come straight out of... Hey?
At Truett's, I was
but I mean, you didn't go out of school and go straight into university. You took...
Oh, I spent a year in Brazil as an exchange student.
All right, okay. And then you went into university, and after that, you wanted to be an actress.
I think I'd always wanted to be one.
Right. Yeah, of course. I mean, when you graduated, like, the plan was I wanted to act, but
yeah. Well, I moved to Joburg, and then I was actually working for an educational theater company. Like, straight out of school, I got that. Straight out of college, I got that gig, which was really great. And we did life skills shows all over South Africa in English, Afrikaans, and Zulu.
Okay.
And we did shows about AIDS awareness and teenage pregnancy and child abuse. And I mean, life skills mean different things in different countries. And at the time, that was something that was important to be taught to kids and have a facilitated discussion and things like that. But I was a trained actor. I wasn't a trained counselor or facilitator. And it was hard. At the end of that contract, it was a lot. And I wanted to go back to that, and I still want to go back to that. But I couldn't handle, like, you were acting and you were doing the scene about child abuse. And kids could relate to that. And so instead of opening up to teachers or someone that they couldn't relate to, they could relate to you. And so we would have kids come up to us and tell us things. And then we would say, okay, we're going to pass this on to your teachers and your headmaster. And then leave and go do shows at another school. It was really good work, but it was hard.
Hard on the heart.
Yeah. And then this was still fresh after apartheid. Like, we're talking like 2002, 2003. And so after that ended, I started auditioning for things. And I think there were maybe like 2 or 3 Indian actresses that were in everything that people knew, whose faces they trusted, who could be representative of the entire Indian population in South Africa at the time. And so it was hard to get work. And I got really despondent, and I was like, why am I even doing this? And then I started working at an interfaith like a live TV show, and I was the production manager on that for a little bit. But during that despondent period, I had applied to be a flight attendant for Emirates.
Yeah.
As a okay, let me just see. If I can't act in my country right now, at least maybe I can travel. Let me see what else happens. And so I was working on the TV show, and I got the interview, and I got through all of the rounds of the interviews. And then 6 months later, they offered me a job, and I was like, I have to take this. It's an opportunity to, the town that I come from.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know how small my town is in the foothills of the Drakensberg.
Yeah, beautiful place, but really small. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I never imagined living and working in Joburg, let alone moving to Dubai and then becoming an international flight attendant and getting to travel to Rome and Paris and Singapore, places that I had read about, but I didn't imagine ever getting to go to. I know you wanted to talk creative, and now
but this is good because this is the hero's journey, because it's absolutely this is really important actually, because to make a decision like yours didn't bring you directly to being an artist in any way, but it was giving you something else which is important, which is traveling, culture, and maybe some financial stability for a little bit, which is good for the heart and it's good for the mind.
Yeah, it was really good. It helped me pay off my student loans. It helped me
yeah, and that's freedom, because that means that when you come out of that, I've sort of lost you. Hang on a sec.
Oh, sorry.
No worries. When you come out of that, then and you don't have if you have no freedom, you have to pick all the jobs, all the roles, whatever comes along, you have to take it up. So that might actually end up being worse for you. Whereas if you have a little bit of freedom, you don't have any debt, then you can actually choose what you want to do. But then after that, you did that for 3 years?
Yeah, I did one contract.
Right.
But so let me tell you something about being a flight attendant, if you're interested. It's not as glamorous a job as you think it is. You're a glorified waitress in the sky, and you're stuck in this tin can with grumpy people who somehow don't appreciate the fact that they're flying and able to travel. And it was a lot. I'm going to say that. Because you're supposed to smile through it all and just go chicken or fish, tea or coffee. And you're just and I loved it. I mean, I'm so grateful for that opportunity, but I think there's a certain personality that can stay as a flight attendant for a long, long time. And that's not me.
But it wasn't your goal. So
no.
It's like a stepping stone. And I mean, it's not easy. And you don't really get to see the cities where you fly to most of the time.
No, you have maybe 24 hours there, but then you get there, you're tired, you go to bed, you wake up and you fly out again. But something that I would always try to do is wherever I got to, I would go straight to the hotel, change, and then go out. Even if it was just to a coffee shop or just take a walk, I want to say that I've been to that city and I've walked through and I've had a snack or a meal or something. And then I would go back to the hotel and pass out and then fly back.
Yeah, that's the same for me when I'm traveling to some place for shoots. Sometimes I just end up in a studio somewhere. And if I make it a point to also just to go out, at least try something that's local, go to a restaurant or whatever, just to breathe it in a little bit, otherwise there's no point in traveling. Mm-hmm. Then after that, you ended up in Thailand, right? Taiwan.
Yeah. So that contract was coming to an end, and I had a friend from South Africa who was living in Taiwan already. And I was supposed to go on vacation to visit her, but she was going to be working. She was doing a summer school, teaching ESL. And she's like, if you want to come, the only way to spend time with me is if you actually teach as well, because I'm going to be busy the whole time. And I was like, I can do that. Sure. I studied drama and theater and education, and I could, teach English. I speak it. And so I actually applied, and I got I got into the summer school with her. And I was in Taipei for 2.5 weeks. And it was so amazing. And I was coming from Dubai, which is also not sterile, but very man-made. I don't know how to explain it. Have you been to Dubai?
Yeah, I've been. It's just buildings.
Yeah, and there's a superficiality to it that like you can never just get into the nitty-gritty of Dubai. I never really felt that. Even though I lived in the old quarter, like Dubai, it's still it wasn't as exciting a place.
It doesn't feel like there's a soul there, right? You know, even in the old town, it feels a little bit stale. Like, not stale, I wouldn't say stale. It's like, you know, people don't live outdoors there. So you don't have the market and that kind of stuff. So you don't have like a real bustle to the city. It's like people get out into the car, drive somewhere, get out of that into whatever they're doing. So it's like, it feels a bit like
Las Vegas. It's also too hot too, but
you die.
But the souks were my favorite thing, like the spice souk and, you know, the fabric souk. Like going into that felt good. But then I got to Taipei and it was messy and dirty and textured and fun, and there was just so much going on, and I found that really cool coming from Dubai. And my contract was coming to an end, so I thought, I don't know what exactly I'm doing next. Why not see if I can find a job teaching English in Taiwan, which I did. I went home for a couple of months to South Africa. I packed up, I saw my family, and then I moved to Taiwan. And my first town was this tiny little town with a bunch of rice paddies. I got a bicycle and I used to cycle past rice paddies to class. Like, again, I was living this crazy dream. And I moved to another like middle-sized town. Like Taichung is in the middle, but it's also a medium-sized city. And I met a bunch of expats. It's funny that expats are also immigrants, but they're called expats.
Yeah, it's different.
When they're not in a European country. Yeah.
Because I think it's because they used to own the place.
Oh, okay, that's how that works.
If part of your family comes from a country that used to own another country, then you're an expat.
Oh.
Yeah, I think that's how it works.
So I guess I'm an immigrant wherever I go then.
You'd be an expat as well, in theory, because South Africans are expats.
I know.
Oh.
Anyway.
So you met expats. The connection in New York is fantastic. Hello.
Hi. Okay.
There you go. Cool. So you met a bunch of expats.
Yeah, and I felt like I was living my best life. I was really enjoying it. I finally got onto a scooter, which I was afraid to do, but I finally got onto one, and I was then really enjoying the freedom of being able to go around places and do things. And then I was in a really bad accident and never wanted to get on a scooter ever again. But I
almost lost your leg, right?
Well, it was a compound fracture, and then I like broke my nose, and I was in the ICU in a coma for like 5 days.
Yeah. It's life experiences. You're gonna use that one day.
You know, yeah. And I think that's part of what, like, when I woke up, I was like, what am I doing? I want to act. And I was in a play there, but it was part-time. Like I was teaching and then I was acting part-time. But it was, I don't know, people who have had near-death experiences may say this, but it is a wake-up call.
Yeah, of course.
It's like, what am I doing with my life? I could have almost died, and this is the thing that I want to be doing, but I'm not pursuing it. And I have the privilege to do it. Like, what is stopping me from trying, except myself? So I took a quick detour because I met Lee at the same time.
Your husband?
my husband. And I was going to move to Amsterdam at the time, like after the accident. And part of it was to see Sandy, our good friend.
Right.
But also I had this idea that I wanted to act there. And I knew Afrikaans, so transitioning to Dutch wouldn't be that hard. No. But I didn't do my research, and you can't just get there and start acting. You actually have to have your employment visa beforehand.
All right.
So I got there and I didn't get much acting done. I mean, I saw Sandy and met Ellen, and I did a couple of gigs, but they don't really do under the table gigs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're very above board in the Netherlands.
Yeah, yeah. Which is kind of surprising, but not, I guess. Okay. And so Lee and I were there 3 months, and we had just enough money left to buy tickets to our respective homes. And we were like, okay, so I'll go to South Africa, you go back to the US, and then I guess we're good. And then he's like, why don't you come to the US with me? And honestly, I have never considered America. Like, I had never considered traveling to America, coming here, or any of that. I've always wanted to go to other places. And now I've been here 10 years. 11 years. Oh my God.
Well, that's a place to be, if you're going to be an actress. If you can stay there, it's like the opportunities that you have there are like amazing compared to anywhere else.
Yeah, but the first 3 years were hard. Like, we got here and we stayed with his dad for a bit in Pennsylvania. And then we moved to Jersey City and we stayed with his friend, and we were like sleeping on their couch. And I literally had no money. Like, having had all this freedom and having lived in Dubai and like doing all of these things, I had no money. I had no friends. I had no family. I knew Lee when I came to the US, and I came with like one suitcase, and I didn't know how to navigate the subway system, for one, but I didn't know how to navigate like the immigration system, or everything was so foreign, even though it's all in English.
Right.
And I mean, it felt really weird to me because I had traveled by myself to so many different places. And the US is not easy.
No, of course not. No.
Like, the first couple of months, Lee was working and I was just at home, at his friend's home. And I mean, I think I wrote about this on Facebook. I would walk for hours. I would just leave the house and walk because I was like, what else can I do? And I would find, so they call them pennies and dimes and nickels. So like 1 cent and 5 cents and 10 cents. I would find them and pick them up and collect them, so I would have enough money to get a coffee. And coffee was 65 cents at this one corner store. And then his price went up to 75 cents. And I was like, no, I can't afford this. So now even getting a Starbucks latte, I'm like, I could not afford a 65 cent bad coffee. Like, I want to remember that too, though. You know what I mean? And I did 3 part-time jobs, and I was working as an admin assistant, and I was teaching, and I was doing all of these things, and I was studying at night just to be able to keep my visa going. So the first 3 years were just trying to figure this place out and trying to make it work between Lee and I, and just like see if I could even survive the US.
Yeah.
So yeah.
No, but that's the thing. It's like I didn't have the visa problem coming to Italy because I'm Italian, but just organizing things and explaining to the bureaucracy here why you did your schools in South Africa, but you have an Italian name. just little things like there was compulsory military service when I moved here still. Oh, wow. So they were going to, like, after a year that I was here and I was working already and paying my own way, they wanted me to go and do military service. And I was like, well, I can't now. Like if I would have done it, like off the plane, I'd have to do it straight away. Okay. That would have been okay. But for what? Just to like lose my place in the work and start again when you come out. It's like no point. So then you have to go through a whole process, and nobody makes it easy for you. It's not like a thing where it's just like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 steps, get all the steps done, and it's okay. And it's like you go to office 11B in this place, and then you go to another office in another place, and then you got to speak to people that don't know what they're doing. So yeah, it's bureaucracy is fun and games all the time. And in the
Oh, sorry. I was going to say in the past 10 years, I got a tourist visa, and then I changed that to an H3 work and train visa so that I could stay. And then I got a green card because Lee and I got married. So I applied for my green card, and then I went through my citizenship, US citizenship. And that has just been paperwork.
Yeah.
And like collecting evidence of our relationship and keeping files of taxes forms and bank statements. Like, it's just so much paperwork. Who actually goes through all of that? I wonder.
Probably nobody. They just want to make it hard because, if it was easy, then it would just be like everybody would live in the United States.
But would they?
Like literally, like I mean, I would move there in a second if it was an easy thing to get an artist visa for me.
Why?
Because the level of work that you do in the States is way higher than the level of work that you do in Europe, and the quantity of work is higher, and the way that work is done is different to what it's like in Europe. It's if you live in the States, but you get more clients in Europe. So I could all my mates that work that live in New York, they're constantly on planes flying back to Europe and working in London and Paris and Milan.
As photographers?
As photographers. But the opposite doesn't really work. The opposite happens very, very rarely, where you live in Milan and you get booked for jobs in Los Angeles. It hardly ever happens. I mean, it does, like once every 5 years or so, I'll go off to maybe Miami or whatever to do a job, but it's always with Italian clients, and it's very rare. So as a business opportunity, it's way better to be there. I mean, for anybody who wants to get into tech, the angel investors in Silicon Valley are way more full of money than they are here. I was speaking to a guy, a scientist. He works in machine learning, Italian University of Florida. And he was talking about his friends in Italy that are doing startups. They get like not even a fraction of the money that they would be able to get for the same thing in Seattle. So it's such a wealthy country with such a captive audience because they have 300 million people there. So if nothing else, you can sell to your 300 million people. And here we're a sixth of that in Italy, and it's the European Union has made it so that if you're a photographer in London and you want to work in Italy, you just jump on a plane and come and work in Italy, and vice versa. It's fantastic, but at the same time, it's pushed up competition to a level where the bar to entry is set very, 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 very high. So it's complicated.
Did you see me roll my eyes when you said it's a wealthy country? And I was like, oh.
Yeah, but it is. It is.
I think, to be honest, yes, it is. But to be honest, it's romanticized from the outside.
Yeah, of course, because we see movies and that. And the people that we know that live there generally do well.
After 10 years of blood, sweat,
of course. But I mean,
tearing their hair out,
yeah,
you have to be able to stick it out. Like I think people also think like, oh, wow, well, you're acting there now, so what's the big deal? But also the resilience and the like determination has to be there.
Yeah, of course.
Work, because
Absolutely.
I could very easily have given up on the dream, and either left or just resigned myself to doing something else. Because like starting to act here, I was taking every single job I could because I had no contacts and no network or anything. So I was just doing what I could for free, for exposure, because people love to give artists exposure, but it doesn't pay my bills. And it took so long to build that up that there were so many times that I was like, why am I even doing this? Like, what do I have left to give? And is it worth it? Or should I take something more stable where I know I'm going to be able to pay my rent? And I think that's, I mean, you can ask me that now and I'll say yes. But if you had asked me that like 5 years ago, I would have said, I don't know. I don't think so.
Yeah, but I mean, that's the path that every artist takes, I think, now, at the end of the day. Like we do a job that is, it's unnecessary. And we're noticing it now because we're both in the house and we're not outside.
Yes, but everyone is reading a book or watching TV or like the way that people are being entertained right now is by artists.
Oh, no, 100%. I agree with that. Once upon a time, they didn't have TV and they would stay indoors and they would have played games and whittled wood, you know? So, I mean, we're doing it because we have it. We have this abundance of creative stuff, which is making it very easy for us to stay indoors at the moment. But at the same time, it's like we don't. I mean, my brother, he's got a different point of view on this. He says we inspire people to like somebody watches Star Trek and then becomes a rocket scientist, and they get us to the moon, and we get to the minerals. You know, whatever. Yes, 100%. But strangely enough, whenever something goes down, then we become like we have to do something else. We have to. We can't like keep taking pictures. Like, I mean, I could have changed my kind of photography and become like a reportage photographer and go around and photograph people in the streets. But I'm not interested in that kind of stuff, and I wouldn't have done a good job about it because that's not me. So fashion photography is absolutely useless unless we're selling clothes to people that can buy them. And it's fun and it's beautiful to watch and whatever. But at the end of the day, like at the moment, we're not helping anybody. So like, it's good that there's a force of people that can actually stay home and maybe, you know, have time to dedicate themselves to volunteer work and go fill bags up with food or do something else. You know, that's where we could become useful at the moment. Right? I mean, we fashion photographers. Because I mean, I'm also a little bit jaded. You might have noticed about like
no.
It's a little bit. Yeah, no. I was talking to another friend of mine the other day, going, he's like, I'm very guilty. I feel very guilty that I haven't done a project in these 2 months that we've been locked in. And I was like, well, I take pictures. I go outside to take pictures, and if I can't go outside, I'm not going to take pictures. So like, it's just how I am.
But that's you.
Exactly. It's me. But I mean, I'm also watching people like tearing their heads out, trying to be like desperately creative on Instagram, all my colleagues and stuff like that, just producing, because you're somebody that produces, so you must produce in this period, you know?
But that's like a societal pressure to be productive.
Yeah.
But this is like an unprecedented time where you're trying to deal with grief and trauma and all of that. The first month I was freaking out because I wasn't writing plays and I wasn't doing anything on Zoom, and I wasn't figuring out how to act and direct via Zoom, whereas I have friends who were doing that. And it was actually making me feel a lot worse about myself, whereas there's a lot going on right now. that we have to feel bad about. You don't have to add that pressure onto yourself.
Yeah, exactly. There's that. And there's just things that you can do that aren't tied directly to what work you do. You could just read a book, and read, just things that you wouldn't have time for usually.
Right.
Those pressures aren't there at the moment, because it's not like we're going to come out of this and there's going to be somebody going at the end, oh, look, during the 40, the great 80 days of COVID-19, Andy produced exactly 4 photographs. And so he's not a photographer. So we're going to scratch him off the list, and he's totally useless to everybody. They've forgotten those pictures like already, like all the stuff that we produced on Instagram, because that's the only place it's going out, or like online media. It's going to go in a show perhaps somewhere, someone will put up something of art produced during COVID, but there's going to be new stuff to produce the week that we come out. As soon as we come out, there's going to be like craziness. People are going to be like dying for new content. So we have to we're going to be producing, and that stuff's going to be all like buried at the end of the day somehow. Yeah.
But I think art post-COVID is going to be so cool.
I've lost you. G. There you go. You were saying art post-COVID is going to be so cool.
Oh my gosh, yes. Sorry. I'm saying that artists interpret the world for most people.
Yeah.
And I think that we're going to have some really beautiful pieces. I can imagine just the plays that will come out of this. I know we're not going to have performances for a little while in New York, and Broadway is not going to open up just yet. But I imagine that, I'm hopeful that the art that comes out of this is going to be memorable.
Yeah, I think so. I think it needs to be processed still. It's going to be like Picasso painting Guernica. No, he didn't paint it the day of the bombing. He painted it later because he thought about it, he processed it and painted it. So I think this need to produce now because it needs to be done because it looks like you're not doing anything.
Yeah,
that's not useful to anybody. We need to take a step back, build ourselves up, build, get over the trauma as well. I have to admit, I haven't felt too bad about the whole situation. I mean, we're living in a place where literally we've got like a 15% death rate at the moment. It's quite bad, but until a family member didn't get touched, we were living it up. We're just enjoying the family, just ourselves and whatever. When that happened, we opened our eyes a little bit, went into a little mini depression, but then we're like, okay, cool. Let's just make the most of it. We're stuck inside. There's nothing we can do about it. And we came out, and now we're back onto the whole, just like when we had a barbecue the other day because with our neighbors, not together. We were at 3 different tables, social distancing, whatever. But, and it was very strange, but we got a sense of normality. We were chatting, we were talking to each other, and it made life, it just makes it seem like further away. And also we live in a sort of like a courtyard. We don't see the road. It's very sheltered where we are. It might be different if you have a view on the streets and you don't see cars driving past and you don't see people, but we see what we've always seen like every single day, before and after. So for us, it's like almost like a happy, like nirvana sort of space where I'm playing with my kid every day, and I feel like I'm playing the rich person that can stay at home and not stress about work.
Well, as long as you can acknowledge your privilege, that's a start. I acknowledge
it 100%. I admit it, because I know it's there. I know people are suffering, but at the same time, I'd it would be silly for me to not say look, we have it good and we're enjoying what we have at the moment because we were lucky to have it good. I'd feel.
We hear ambulances, and we're not in Manhattan. We're in Brooklyn, and it's quieter. But we hear ambulances so often, and more often than by New York standards. And when we don't hear one for a little bit, then you're like, wait, like what's missing? Because it's actually become part of this like COVID soundtrack or something.
No, we're hearing them here as well, but I don't know. We're detached, like I said, and then we had the big scare at the beginning where the hospitals weren't handling it at all. So people were being turned away from the hospitals and were just dying at home. So at the beginning it was quite rough. Once they sorted out the hospital situation with the beds and enough people getting in, then it's become just a matter of, the people are getting cured or taken care of, but they're not, obviously if most of the people that are dying in Italy are people that have serious problems apart from COVID. Cancers, serious lung disease, heart disease, stuff like that. It's like, it sounds callous, but it's people that were on their way out, but their last couple of years have been shortened. And it's rough, but it would be very different if it was touching children. If you had children going out and just dying by the thousands, I think people would have a very different point of view on the whole thing.
Yeah, but in New York, we've had several cases of 30 and 40-year-old perfectly healthy.
Yeah, but Italy too. We've had them here.
And like there was even an 8-year-old kid recently. But also in New York, the numbers are more brown and black people, and like predominantly black. And then
why is that? Why do you think? Have they figured out a reason for that?
Well, I think like when you have the privilege of social distancing, then it's easier to like not spread it and not share it. But when you have, like in Queens, there's a high number of immigrants in a certain area that have been getting sick. And it's because there are just so many people living in this small area. And there's so many people living in one apartment. Like social distancing is not an easy thing to do. Lee and I are lucky enough that we can be in separate rooms. Like when we were sick, we were in separate rooms, but he still fell sick taking care of me. And then that's
the situation in Italy as well. We're all living on top of each other. The families or grandparents and families live generally together. And the funny thing is here, the immigrant population has been hit less than the local population, because it seems that the tuberculosis shots that we have in Africa seem to help at least dampen the symptoms a little bit. So maybe like here, it seems like they've been very, very lightly hit, unless those numbers are going to come out later. Who knows? Because there are, racists in Italy as well. So maybe they just like hiding things.
But so many of the workers here who are still working, like in grocery stores and cashiers and delivery people for restaurants or whatever, those are all immigrants. Those are all, sorry, I get so frustrated when I think of these people who are protesting with guns who want to be outside, where there are people in New York who I think would want to be inside, but they have to work.
Probably. No, it's madness. It's madness. And now we're getting to the point in Italy as well where people are just like, oh, fuck it, let's just go outside. That's it, finished. We just want to stay outside and we want to start our lives again, and to hell with what happens. So this is the moment where things can hit shit can hit the fan quite easily, and maybe get a second wave, but hopefully not.
And Florida open their beaches. Georgia's opening up their bowling alleys, and I'm like, okay, these are really
Yeah. But then we got like, you have Sweden that hasn't shut down at all. They just kept everything open. They're like, herd immunity, let's go for it. So it's they're doing okay. It's not like they have crazy numbers at the moment. They just went for it. But they have a fantastic healthcare system. The old people are very well taken care of. And so maybe they were like, okay, we can take the brunt. If everybody gets sick, we can take the brunt. We don't have people losing their jobs. We don't have people, committing suicide because their business has gone under. And we keep it open. Like at first, I was very, very skeptical about that. And then I was looking at, now a friend of mine lives up there, and he's like, actually, we were all very worried, but it seems like it's going okay. It just depends on if your system can handle it. Like if you have enough beds and ICUs for all the people that get sick, then you might as well, do it. But if you don't, then you can't.
Like the United States of America.
Yeah, or Italy or Germany. We're all in the same boat.
Yeah.
And we're trying, but we'll see what happens out there. Were you working on anything before we shut down?
I was. I don't know if you know this. So I've been acting for several years now. Oh yeah, back to that. It got better.
Yeah, you see, that's why I was trying to bring it back into the positive.
Yeah, so I did a lot of part-time things, and I built a career, and I built up a network, and I built up like a good theater community and theater family, and became part of, like I feel like I belong in this theater community now. And for me, I was like, okay, so what's next after acting? But not like, okay, how do I branch out into some other career? But what else can I do within this artistic realm for myself? And it was directing, because when I studied drama at Natal Tech, where you were there, I specialized in directing. And it seemed at the time, I didn't think I was going to go into directing, because if I couldn't make it as an Indian actress in South Africa, I didn't know if they were going to take an Indian female director seriously. And so I kind of put that to the side. And I kind of gave up on that dream. But then here I was like, no, I think I've built up the confidence. I think I've built up the network. I think I can do this now. And because I didn't study here, and because I don't have like the right qualifications in the US, a good way for me to branch into directing is to be an assistant director, and to like build up my credits and my resume that way. And I've been doing that for the past couple of years, and I've worked on several great pieces with some really amazing directors at some of like the best theaters in New York, which I'm so proud of. And this is a piece at the Public Theater. I don't know if you've heard of it.
Yeah, I've heard of the name, but unfortunately...
They do the Free Shakespeare in the Park.
Right. Okay. Yes, of course.
And it's with a really amazing director, Daniel Sullivan, and the piece is called The Visitor, which is 5 years in the making. It's a musical about these two undocumented immigrants. And it's based on the movie from 2007. If you've seen it, it's called The Visitor.
I haven't, but I'll watch it now.
But it's just this beautiful, heartfelt piece. And when I started directing, something that I wanted to make sure I did was not do the same thing I did with acting, where I took everything and anything that didn't kind of align with my values or the stuff that I wanted to work on. And so the pieces that I've been working on as an assistant director has been on immigration and gun control and the things that matter to me as an activist that I can also put into my art, if that makes any sense.
No, absolutely. 100%.
And I consider myself an immigrant. I'm a naturalized citizen, but I'm an immigrant woman in this country. And this piece is about like just what it's like being an undocumented immigrant, but it's about community and it's about family. And it's just, we were 4 weeks in, we were about to go into tech.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm so sad that it stopped. But I think when we come back and if we get to work on it in a few months or whenever it is again, we're going to come back with so much more heart to put into the piece that I think it's going to be even more beautiful than I think it already is.
No, wicked. It's fantastic. But so it's just been put on hold. It hasn't been cancelled.
I'm not sure, and I need to check the wording because I would have to make sure I have the correct information for you. But for now, rehearsals are cancelled, and the show was supposed to open April 15th. Are you there?
I'm here. I can hear you, but I can't see you.
Okay. So we had like a little Zoom opening night party.
All right. Okay.
Everyone kind of got dressed up and came together and just chatted a little bit.
That's cool.
And I think the thing with a lot of theaters is they have to look at how they're going to come back from this. And so many of the smaller theaters might not even be able to.
Do you think they're going to use things like streaming so that you can buy a ticket and watch the opening night at home or something like that?
Maybe because so many theaters hold 100, 200, 300 people. And I think people are going to be afraid to go into theater for a little bit.
Yeah, of course.
And be so close to people for the next 2 hours. But also, I don't know if people will want to invest in theater just yet. Because they're going to be thinking about what they're going to spend their money on.
Yeah, of course. And
theater seems frivolous. Well, not to me. I mean, it is my heart and soul.
Yeah, exactly. But like we were saying before, it's one of those things.
But so I work part-time at the Met Opera, right? As a super. And they've been streaming already. They've been
I've seen something from them.
Which has been so cool because they've been doing free streams of all of the live and HD shows. And millions of people, the first week, they had trouble with that because I don't think they were ready for the millions of people that were going to watch it. And so I think that's been helping them build their audience base.
Yeah,
too.
I think that's something that's coming out a lot with all the Instagram lives and all that kind of stuff. A lot of people have found their voice in a certain way. They're not just producing content that's static, and they're building an audience. So at the end of this, I mean, the whole podcast, how do you call it? Economy, industry.
There's a podcast economy.
is booming at the moment because people have time to listen to them and people have time to produce them. We've been doing ours for about 2 years now, and obviously we slowed down during this thing because we didn't know how to translate our thing. But it's it's so easy to get it done, and I think people are enjoying also maybe not hours, but what we're doing now is just to talk for an hour and be able to get into things. A lot of people are finding that interesting, and that's why we started, because we were finding that interesting. Yeah. And we wanted to do this whole take on it where we explain, the whole thing is to explain to people that are just starting out in a creative thing, or a 15-year-old kid who happens on our YouTube channel and is I want to be an actress, and listens to your story, for example. And it's okay, it's not if I don't make it straight away, I can make it in 10 years' time. But I need to put in the work, and I need to sacrifice. And I need to have my eye on the goal. You can't just faff around and just think that it's going to happen. And that's the same thing with painting, and it's the same with sculpture, and the same with photography. And that's what we've picked up from all the people that we've interviewed for now, up until now. It's you have the big three. You have technical ability, can you do the job? How much money you can invest in it, and how much time you dedicate to it. And you have to have 2 of those things, like at 100, and then the third one can sort of fall off. But if you don't have 2 of them, you're not going to make it anyway. You know, if you have a lot of talent and you have no time and no money, you're not going to go anywhere, unfortunately, unless, you know, obviously there's this, you know, the exception that proves the rule of the shining star that just happened to become picked up from the street and became a big star. But I mean, how often does that happen? Really. All you hear about is grinding all the time. The hustle.
And still we love it.
Yeah, of course we do, because because the hustle gets us to where we want to be, you know? And also, like, when you get given something, it's not after 5 minutes you've finished with it and you finish playing and you put it away. But when you've worked so hard for something, then you want to, you know, you've earned that position. So now you want to like do it again because you've worked out how to do it. And so I think that's the big takeaway from every person that we've done. But you most of all, I think, for now, because your story is a real hero's journey. Absolutely.
Aww, thank you.
It is completely. You've gone into the belly of the whale. You've come out the other side. Yeah.
And I don't realize it. Like, sometimes I forget. So thank you for even like having this conversation with me to help me remember.
No, it's my pleasure. I mean, I like, I mean, apart from the fact that, you know, we're friends, but I like following you because of this reason. You don't realize like what you've done, sort of thing, you know. It's like you come from escort and now you're working on Broadway, you know. It's an inspiration for a lot of people, I think.
Thank you.
Yeah. I think we can call it a day. We've done an hour, and I think.
Yeah, you think? But we haven't even touched on anything.
I know. Do you want to go on?
No, I'm good.
We can do more. We can do another one. We can go into something more detail. Just let's say that this is an introduction to Gulshan Mia.
Let's see how this goes and how the fans react to it. And
the fans always react like badly. It doesn't matter. We do this for us.
Yeah. No, this was really great. Thank you.
No, thank you. Lots of love. Let's give it its cut it here.
Yeah.
Ciao.
Bye.